INTEX Millwork Solutions, RS70 Providence rail installation. Level section with structural post and wood mount hardware. Before getting started, please note that Providence rail is designed to meet International Residential Code. Please check with local code officials to ensure you meet the proper requirements and refer to the installation instructions provided in the packaging before and during installation process. Post sleeve reinforcement options. Two typical null sleeve reinforcement options can be used: wooden 4x4 post or INTEX structural post mount with anchoring hardware. In this video, an INTEX structural post mount has already been installed. Please visit intexmillwork.com for structural post mount installation instructions. If using a wooden 4x4 post, please contact your local architect or building inspector for proper installation practices. Structural post hardware. Determine what hardware you will need for the INTEX structural post: wood mount, null mount-W, or concrete mount, null mount-C. For this demonstration, we will be using an INTEX structural post, null post 36/42, with a wood mount kit, null mount-W. The following INTEX Millwork products are used in this Providence level rail installation: RS70 6K36 72-inch by 36-inch Providence level rail kit, null post 36/42, 36-inch structural null post mount, null mount W, mounting hardware for wood or composite application for null post 36/42, null 5EX, extruded 5 square inch by 48-inch null post sleeve with adjustable shims, IMPC5, 5-inch injection molded pyramid cap for null 5EX, IMTR5, 5-inch injection molded trim ring for null 5EX. Before getting started, be sure to have the following items: battery-powered 14-volt or higher or corded drill, non-impact, 1/8 inch drill bit, 3/16 inch drill bit, number 2 square driver bit, 5/16 inch nut driver bit, latex caulk, scrap board 3/4 inch thick, tape measure, level, and speed square, bar of soap or wax, and a chop saw with blades to cut both CPVC and aluminum. To begin installing your INTEX Millwork Providence rail system, start by sliding the null wrap over the post. Measure and mark the null wrap based on your rail system height. Trim the null wrap to the appropriate measurements you've marked based on your rail system height. Set aside the excess null wrap material. Slide the trimmed null wrap over the post. Next, slide the trim ring over the post and down to the base. Begin dry fitting a piece of scrapboard by scribing the post location from the bottom rail and checking that the mark lines up the same at the top. Use the marking to cut the scrapboard, then dry fit it into place to make sure your cut measurements are correct. Using the scrapboard, transfer lines onto one of the aluminum reinforcement sections. Measure 5/16 inch back from the transfer lines and mark the cut line on the aluminum reinforcement section to allow space for the end brackets. Repeat these two steps on the remaining aluminum reinforcement section. Before cutting, double check your measurements with the scrapboard. Cut the top and bottom aluminum sections to length. Before installing the aluminum end brackets, score the rail bracket screws, labeled A in the installation instructions, through a bar of soap or wax to help easily guide the screws through the aluminum. Set the drill chuck to 15 or 16 and install the end brackets slowly to ensure the screws do not strip or break. Do not use an impact driver. Repeat these steps on each end of the cut aluminum. Next, measure 1 inch from each end of the bottom aluminum to mark for weep holes. Using a 3/16 inch drill bit, drill the holes on each end of the bottom aluminum. Mark the center of the bottom aluminum for the crush block. Using a 3/16 inch drill bit, drill a hole through the center mark. On the crush block, mark the center point and pre-drill a hole using a 2.5 inch baluster screw labeled C in the installation instructions. Install the crush block. Note that the 4-inch crush block can be trimmed down to 3 inches and still maintain a 36-inch installed rail height. Using the bottom aluminum with the crush block installed, dry fit the aluminum section. After the crush block height is determined, use the excess pieces of the INTEX null wrap as cheater blocks by trimming the pieces to the same height as the crush block. Mark the post to center the bracket on the post face. When installing to wood, use the rail attachment screws supplied with the Providence rail kit, labeled B in the installation instructions. When installing to a post mount, use the number 10 by 1.5 inch hex head screws supplied with the structural null post mount. To begin installing the balusters, use the scrap board to measure and mark the center of the rail section. Note that the top and bottom rails have dimple marks for the balusters. Using the center mark on the scrap board, determine whether to center the rail on a baluster or between 2 balusters. For this demonstration, centered on a baluster works best. Use whichever layout is more aesthetically pleasing for the end run of your railing. After baluster positioning is determined, measure and mark the length of the top and bottom rails, transferring the marks around the entirety of the profile. Cut the top and bottom rails to length. To prevent cutting mistakes, trim the top and bottom rail slightly longer than your markings. Dry fit the cut bottom and top rails to ensure accuracy, trimming if needed. Then, remove the dry fit rails to begin installing the balusters. On the bottom rail, slowly drill the baluster screws, labeled C in the installation instructions, through the dimple mark until the tip of the screw projects through the rail by about 1/8 of an inch. Using a 3/4 inch thick spacer board, line the dimple of the baluster up to the projected screw tip and drive the screw all the way through. Repeat these steps for the remaining balusters. Once all balusters are secured on the bottom rail, offset and install the baluster lock screws, labeled D in the installation instructions, into each baluster to prevent spinning. Once the balusters are fully secured to the bottom rail, align the top rail with the balusters, and repeat the installation of the baluster screws, followed by the baluster lock screws. Fit the assembled rail section into place, securing it onto the previously installed bottom aluminum. Slide the previously cut top rail aluminum into the top rail profile. Align the top rail section to the center of the newel wrap face. If the railing is not installing to a finished newel post or column, ensure that the rail section is plumb and level prior to mechanically fastening it to the desired surface. When installing to wood, use the rail attachment screws supplied with the Providence rail kit, labeled B in the installation instructions. When installing to a post mount, use the number 10 by 1.5 inch hex head screws supplied with the structural newel post mount. Using the scrap board, measure and mark the top rail cap. Cut the top cap slightly long. Dry fit the top cap to ensure cuts are correct. Adjust the slightly long cut as or if needed. Remove the top cap after dry fitting and apply latex caulk. Fit the top cap back into place. Apply latex caulk to the 4 tabs on the inside of the newel cap and install the newel cap to finish. Thank you for watching. Please visit INTEXMillwork.com for more information on our additional product lines or for more assistance.